Community, this is Steve Grusis II Greek. It's been a while since I put out a video because we've moved and it took a while for us to get our internet connected. So I've been off the bike for a week and I started again slowly last week. But all this time while I was off the bike, I started doing my squats and deadlifts. And I'm not going heavy right now. I'm doing about 4 weeks of building up from very light to just a little past very light. So the question is, when do I lift and when do I ride? Well, the answer is, it depends. And I'm doing a little bit of experimenting. So if I'm doing some intervals, so I'm actually during my off season, I'm focusing on two things. I'm focusing on increasing my FTP, so I have FTP specific intervals, and my VO2 max, because I'm an old guy and I'll be talking later on in another video about the 4 pillars of longevity. VO2 max intervals, that lasts maybe an hour of warming up, doing the intervals, and then riding on back. And the FTP, well, it can go 60 to 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours depending. So typically I want to wait about 3 hours after I get off the bike before I start doing my ride. But since I do these workouts after work, I don't have 3 hours. So it may be like 1 hour. And with the rides being short enough, that could be good enough. Now, today I did a 60-mile ride. And so today's Saturday. The last time I lifted was Wednesday. I did that VO2 max workout on Thursday. And I was feeling it today, but still, the ride was good enough. So this is where I wanted to wait 3 hours. So I got off the bike about 11:30. The Fetching Mr. Cycling Greek and I did a whole bunch of errands. We got back about 5:30. So now I'm starting to do my leg workout. Most of the longer rides that I do during the off season are endurance based, and that goes into the calculus for me as to when I lift and when I ride. Because this was the longest ride for me in about 3 weeks, I was a little more cautious. So the last time I lifted was on Wednesday, and again this was on a Saturday. Oh, I still definitely felt it in my legs, but I was functional enough. In back of me is Fuji. I'll be talking a little more about her at the end of the video. And in back of her is Cat 2 Ronnie. I was a little concerned about ruining his workout because when he was in the front doing his endurance, I was in back of him and my heart rate was in the tempo zone. And my legs, because of the lifting I started, was not ready for something like that. So a couple times I just had to slow up, and then he went up ahead and eventually saw that there was no one on his wheel and he'd slow back up for us. What you are currently looking at is the guest bedroom / office / weight room, at least half the weight room. We are getting a cage, the kind that you fold off the wall, but in the meantime, until it gets here, I'm the cage. I started this session about 6 hours after I got off the bike, and this is my third set. The first set I started off with the bar, then I put a couple tens, and now I'm doing 95 pounds. I have about 2 more weeks of the 4-week adaptive period where I'm doing lighter weights, and I probably won't go much heavier than this because of my strength level versus what I can get over my head to get onto my back. For now, that'll work quite nicely for me. One of the main things you want to accomplish with that 4-week adaptation phase is to, of course, get used to the weights, but also to make sure that you're taking care of any limiters. At least that's what I do with myself. So what are limiters? So let's say I can take a certain amount of weight that I can do with my legs, but I can't do that weight because there's something in my back that's preventing me from doing that. By working with light weights and working on my form, slowly increasing that weight during the 4 weeks, that problem in my back never manifests. Then I can continue on to the heavier phase without any problems to my back, and therefore I can use heavier weights. My very first Greek subscriber back in the day would be happy to know that I fully embraced lunges. Previously, I've been doing Bulgarian squats. Both involve a stability factor. That's one of the 4 pillars of longevity that I'll be talking about in a future video, but lunges more so. Probably because of the dynamic nature of moving forward. I do have the option of doing Bulgarian squats after this, but I was a bit hammered, so I didn't. More importantly, because of the nature of how lunges and Bulgarian squats work, by not doing the Bulgarian squats, that did not diminish my workout. On some workouts, I'll actually do deadlifts the next day, and I was really tempted to do it today because I was again getting a little bit hammered. But because I had a 90-mile ride coming up on Monday, and Monday being a holiday, I figured I just better suck it up and get it done. Even though I recovered nicely from the 60-mile ride earlier this morning, during that 60-mile ride, I was feeling it. I mentioned earlier that I finally embraced lunges. Well, I also finally embraced plyometrics.
That's doubly important for me because not only am I old, but I've never been a sprinter. Not only doing these will help me in that area, but it'll also help me in the use it or lose it area. My leg workout isn't done yet. Lunges and plyometrics aren't the only things that I've embraced this year. I've also embraced hip stability and hip mobility. If your hips are not operating at an optimum level, then you're not going to be riding at an optimum level, much less anything else. Probably heard that you have to have a good endurance base before you go on to anything else in racing. Same applies to your muscularity. You have to have a good hip and core base before you can do anything else optimally. For the older athletes out there, and actually for the younger ones too that are getting there, after the age of 50, you lose about 1% of your VO2 max per year. What they don't tell you is that 2/3 of that loss is due to muscle loss. So if you're consistent with your muscularity and stability work, then you're really losing only 1/3%. If you think in terms of interest rates, you're going to have a much greater loss at 1% a year than you will at 1/3% a year over time. Last thing I do is get my foam roller and do my painful massage. I mentioned earlier that I was going to talk about Fuji at the end of the video, but this video is getting a little long, so I'm going to save that for another video. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you got something out of it. Please leave your comments and any questions that you have below. And as always, remember, kind of repeating myself here, comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.